We're going to build an audience, and this is Dr. Guy McPherson, and I am very pleased to have you back. And you know, this time the graphics are great. You look terrific. You really do. It's great. Great to have you back.
It's amazing what we do with photoshopping these days, isn't it?
Stop. And where are you actually? Where are you located right now?
I'm at the Maya Mountain Lodge, where my friend Bart Mickler do interviews here in the Maya Mountains of Belize.
Oh, very nice. Very nice. Well, we are definitely building an audience, and I would like to say hi to everyone. This is Sandy Shellis with Environmental Coffee House, and Dr. Guy McPherson has been so nice to come back and have a conversation with me and with us, all of us. I want to start with something that I printed out. I've been doing since I talked to you last. I have been learning and reading, and I'm fully down the rabbit hole. So the well-respected climatologist, Dr. Stephen Schneider of Stanford University, famously said in a Discover magazine interview in 1988, quote, "On the one hand, as scientists, we are ethically bound to the scientific method, in effect promising to tell the truth, the whole truth and nothing but, which means that we must include all doubts, the caveats, the ifs, ands, and buts. On the other hand, we are not just scientists, but human beings as well. And like most people, we'd like to see the world a better place, which in this context translates into our working to reduce the risk of potentially disastrous climate change. To do that, we need to get some broad-based support to capture the public's imagination. That, of course, means getting loads of media coverage. So we have to offer up scary scenarios, make simplified dramatic statements, and make little mention of any doubts we might have. This double ethical bind we frequently find ourselves in cannot be solved by any formula. Each of us has to decide what the right balance is between being effective and being honest. I hope that means being both." So given that, Guy, and with all of the things that we've gone through recently, like the New York Magazine article, and then the reaction by Dr. Mann and all the other scientists that maybe got a little scared with that article, and we're doing a little backpedaling, let's have what you think about that statement and about scientific method and everything you do. Take it away.
That's a great statement, and it came the same year that James Hansen went before Congress and warned Congress anthropogenic or human-caused climate change. So It was a watershed year for climate. 1988. The following year, 1980, the New York director of the United Nations Environment Program, Noel Brown, was quoted in the Associated Press and therefore in almost every newspaper in the United States on June 29th as saying we have 10 years to solve this carbon dioxide problem, as he called it. And beyond issue will spin out of human hands. Okay. That the issue of climate change will no longer be one that humans have any control over by, for example, reducing carbon dioxide emissions, but instead planet Earth is going to take over and we won't have it as a species anymore. That was 1989. If I'm doing my math right, that was 28 years ago. And yeah. Which suggests to me that we passed the point of no return at least 18 years ago, maybe sooner. But there certainly has been no change in how we have treated climate change since 1989, nor has there been any significant change since 1988, when Stephen Schneider and James Hansen both made quite profound announcements. So I think we're beyond the point at which we can do anything that will delay horrific climate change. I think that's already upon us. We're seeing people die as a result of abrupt climate change. You experienced a tornado in July. There, up until the day before yesterday, there were 3 tropical out and headed my way, and they have disorganized now because I told them this is the kind of influence I have. So they all went away. They're going to do anything except a bit of rain here. But these are the kinds of whole new. Now we talk about rain bombs. We talk about thunderstorms. We talk about haboobs in the United States, something that never happened.
Right.
5 years ago, because it was for other continents, that sort of thing. So now we have these terms associated with abrupt climate change that were never part of our language before, and now people are dropping them like he's saying hello. So the situation has certainly gotten to the interesting stage, and I think Schneider was right. Stephen Schneider was right that we have this, as scientists, we have this dual mandate. We are to tell the truth. We are to be conservative in telling the truth. Scientists don't say until they've thought it through and reach a conclusion based in probability. So what that means is almost every time, except when we're talking about the laws of thermodynamics or gravity or something that is so well known and so studied that we don't need to put probabilities on. I can no longer hold a pen up and say, if I let go, there's some probability in the air. There's not. We know about gravity now. So the laws of thermodynamics, we put some sort of bounds on and say there's a 99% chance of this, that, or the other. And James Hansen nailed it way back. On the other hand, science is really good at something. Science is amazing. Yesterday, went out at a precise moment, put on a special pair of glasses that apparently don't apply to the President of the United States. Maybe even put on a welding mask. The sun. Or put in a piece of paper and saw an eclipse. And they knew exactly to the second when that eclipse was going to occur, where they were. How did they know that? Actually, predictions in many cases. Science actually has taught us a lot about the universe and how it operates. Yeah. I was talking about precision and accuracy, and that science is actually really very good at doing some things. So I think we should proceed using science as a basis of understanding the universe.
You gotta stop.
I think Stephen Schneider nailed it.
In the statement I read, yeah. As scientists, you do have that. Well, it can be an ethical dilemma sometimes. There seems to be this thing. I'm going to be unprofessional, between anthropogenic climate change, right, and then the other people that are saying, okay, it's natural, it's solar minimums, it's other things besides the CO2 we put in the atmosphere. What do you say to those people?
That warming of the planet is human caused. It appears that we have now in hands. So long before humans showed up, there was climate change. Absolutely. There were the methane traps in Siberia that spewed methane. So, yes, anthropogenic climate change is and was real. Yes, increased carbon dioxide in the atmosphere caused heating of the planet. And now it appears that anthropogenic climate change has triggered events that occurred in the deep past before there were humans on the planet. So that now we have triggered methane going up into the atmosphere, for example, something that occurred before humans showed up and caused additional warming of the planet. We have accelerated the process of planetary warming greatly. And now, quote, natural phenomena are starting to kick in as well. These things have happened in the past. It appears that we triggered them this time.
Yes. It's not just, natural events happening that would have happened in 1400. It's a lot more than that. Right. Jane says, Guy doesn't want to depress us. We've got to face this. And the sooner we come to terms with the impossibility of fixing this, the sooner we arrive at the peacefulness of acceptance. By arriving at acceptance, we can truly learn to make the most of each day instead of taking life for granted. As a hospital and hospice nurse for many years, I can tell you that it is those with a terminal illness who are near the end of their life who seem most perfectly able to throw aside the inessential elements of life. And I that's what I get from you. I don't get the Dr. Doom, but a lot of people do. So what do you have to say to our friend Jane?
That's great. I absolutely agree. That's perfect. So I think Jane nailed it. I couldn't agree more.
Okay, thank you, Jane. So we've covered this negative aspect of things, and we've covered the scientific method, and what I'd like to cover is again, which I covered with Kevin, was some of the conversation difficulties that a lot of us are having with people and, family or friends or whatever that they understand climate change. These are not the deniers. These are people that understand, but have no capacity to then, converse about it, where I'm not forcing it on them. What are your thoughts on that, Guy? The conversation to have with people.
Even people who accept anthropogenic climate change have a very tough time coming to grips with climate change being a threat, posing a threat to the way we live, much less to our very lives.
Okay.
For the most part, further reinforcing the notion that we can expect a large release of methane from the East Siberian Arctic shelf, and that such a release of methane is highly possible at any time. So that's the latest scientific work on the topic, is from the authority on the subject, Kova, Smelatov, and their colleagues conducting expeditions on the East Siberian Arctic shelf for more. So they're the people who know, based on their latest field excursions, it appears that such a release of methane is highly likely at any time. Already, atmospheric methane is 240% higher than it was at the beginning of the Industrial Revolution. So it's a runaway train, and it's not getting any better.
And no amount of, I was going to ask you this. This segues into that, the CO2, sort of vacuuming it out or mitigating methods I've been reading, that people are saying that there may be ways to do this, but what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, there might be. In fact, there have been a couple of attempts that at small scale have proven successful. However, it takes a lot of energy to create that infrastructure. And all that energy means more carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. Possible, but I haven't seen anything that would indicate that we can do anything resembling carbon sequestration at scale that will even keep up with the increase every year that we're adding to the atmosphere, much less digging away at the principle itself. We can't even tackle the interest at this point.
Judith, it says any relation between fires in North America and methane leakage from fracking? That's an interesting one.
Well, it's pretty hard to say. Certainly the methane released from fracking and the methane released from industrial agriculture, including animal agriculture, are contributing to warming. I don't know how anybody could deny that at this point.
Right.
Has the single factor of methane released from fracking contributed significantly to the wildfires in North America today? That's pretty difficult to make that day with great certainty that that's what caused it. I have no doubt it's a contributor, but whether it's a leading cause or not, we don't know.
No, we don't. And we may not know until they blow up underneath Antarctica anyway, which that would be, I don't know.
Because of any reason. I'm not going to stop going on tour because I don't have any fear in my life. Certainly not. I'm not afraid of the deep state. I've been getting death threats for 15 years, at least. That doesn't bother me. I know that people are paying attention if they're sending me death threats. When people send me death threats, I send them my address.
I like that. Well, you know what? That's good. You have some moxie there, I'll tell you that. And you believe in your message. And a lot of us do. And and those of us that love animals, that's the pain we feel. The pain we feel that we cannot prevent, or we may not even be able to communicate to our children properly as what, to say that they'll listen. That's a one I wrestle with, and probably a lot of others do.
Yeah, and I can't even begin to imagine. I'm not a parent myself. I made that decision a long time ago. So I can barely even identify with what you're going through. That although we were given a death sentence at birth, that was for us to roll over and die. That we've known since we were maybe 12 years old that we were going to die. That wasn't sufficient reason to roll over and die. So I don't understand why my message that the human condition is shorter than we expected. I don't understand why that message makes people want to roll over and die. I have no desire to roll over and die just because I know that at some point in the very near future, perhaps as early as October of this year, I'm going to die. That doesn't make me want to go out and buy a gun and shoot myself. It makes me want to live even more. To live even, it allows me to throw off the shackles that tell me certain things. Nonsense. I can do all kinds of things now that I'm liberated from the dominant paradigm that tells me I can't do those things.
Tell us a little bit more about that dominant paradigm.
This is the message that we get whispered in our ear every day. The idea that we can have infinite growth on a finite planet. Of course, that doesn't make any sense, so nobody would say it out loud. We just assume it away. We assume it every time we open a bank account at a bank with a positive interest rate. That's what that means. Infinite growth on a finite planet. And there are lots of other myths associated with this culture. Lies My Culture Told Me is the name of my essay in which I wrote about this. So there are, in addition to the infinite growth paradigm that we all think would be wonderful and we act as if that's the way the world is going to work for us, there's the notion that more is better. More is better. More of what? We don't even ask that. We just assume that more is better. We assume that because we have smartphones, the world is better today than it was 20 years ago.
Right.
That we don't have to have a phone and stand next to it, and actually dial the numbers. So therefore, our lives are better. I'm not so sure about that. When you actually start to question some of these assumptions, you see that there's not a lot there. Every civilization so far has been characterized by endemic racism, endemic misogyny, endemic monetary disparity leading to poverty. We don't question any aspect of civilization. even though it includes those things. Why not? Why don't we ask those questions? Why don't we start questioning everything about this set of living arrangements? The expectations of others have become the bars we use to reinforce the cage we're in. And so one of the ways we can throw off those shackles is by not using the expectations of others to dictate how we're going to live.
That's not always easy. We grew up with that.
Of course it's not. It's the dominant culture screaming in our ear. That's what I mean by the dominant culture. There are all these expectations that people pile onto, so they don't even say them out loud. But there's the expectation that everybody goes to school, and then everybody goes to more school, and then everybody goes to college, and sometimes they go to more school, and they get married, and they have 2.5 children, and they save for retirement until they're 65 or 70 years old, at which point they're not in good enough shape to travel the world like they think they wanted to when they were in their 20s. Wait just a minute. Let's travel the world when we're in our 20s. Let's not wait until we're old and broken down. We can't even get out of bed anymore.
We segue into that on that conversation with the younger people.
You know, when I speak to millennial age people, it's clear that they all get it right away. They know that the infinite growth paradigm is ridiculous. They've never heard it stated that way, but they don't have to know that it's ludicrous. They know that they've been dumped on by previous generations. They know that, you know, James Hansen's latest paper is titled something like Young People's Burden. And he says they're going to have to figure out how to fix this. So he basically implicitly acknowledges that his generation and mine and yours totally screwed the planet. And that the young people are going to have to fix this for us. That is absolutely insane. To dump that responsibility on an entire generation that had nothing to do with the mess we made.
No, we did.
That's nonsense. That's horrible. So I encourage, you know, I saw a couple of months ago, I saw a sign here at the Belize City Airport advertising some vacation company or something. I don't know what. And it said, there are 7 days in the week, and someday is not one of them. But that's the day I hear all the time that people are going to start doing things.
Someday.
Right? Someday I'm going to go do this. Someday.
But the reality is not everybody can afford to do things. And what I say is you do what is in your parameter of what you can afford. If your trip is to a state park in your county more often that has beauty, then that is what you can do. It doesn't have to be grandiose. It doesn't have to be something out of the realm of affordability. I can't afford to go all over. Absolutely.
There's beauty everywhere, Sandy. There's beauty here. There's beauty in the Southwest where I lived for nearly 30 years. There's beauty in northern Idaho where I grew up. And, you know, when I was a kid, we wouldn't even think about getting in the car or getting in a plane or getting in a bus and going to find the beauty. We just walk outside. It's right there.
Get back to that.
Let me show you what's right here.
Okay, let me put it on a big screen. If I could, I would show you what's outside my house.
This is the jungle in my backyard.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful that you were able to do this.
I don't, you know, my point is that none of us has to go a long way to experience what Edward Abbey called the nirvana of now.
Right. The nirvana of now.
We just need to be fully present and appreciate what we have.
Donald says yes, and there's a great beauty by simply living in the present moment, and the answer is inward. So Donald, you're there. You're getting it. You're getting what has to be done.
I couldn't agree more. And I propose right action, which means unpolluting the seas, which means cleaning up our mess instead of dumping it on the millennial generation. Yes, let's do all those things, and let's appreciate what we have right here, right now.
You know what, Guy? Here's another thing about activism, and I encourage the younger generation to continue their activism and continue the fight and continue against pipelines and continue to try to get better people in their local government to make a change and to make a difference. Because, as Guy says, he doesn't say specifically how long we have, and you have to stay working for those things. There's no reason not to. Continue on the path of activism if that is what is in your heart and makes you feel good. We want clean water. We want clean air. Correct? We don't want pollution.
I'm frequently accused of promoting inaction. I've never done that. Frequently I'm interviewed by people who have a radio show rooted in their own activism. And they tell me every time, it took me a long time to decide to interview you, because I hear all the time that you think activism is ridiculous or whatever. And of course I've never said that. So these notions get projected onto me and onto my message, regardless of what I actually say. Activists have a difficult time because the whole notion of activism is that our activism will make a difference. And it will. And in all likelihood, it won't be enough to prevent runaway climate change.
But in the short time, right. So what? In the short time, it may make a huge difference. And what Kevin and I were talking about the other day was not the specific final outcome, but the road there. How you do it. What you do every day. Correct?
Yes, and this is the notion of what a Buddhist would call right action. I'm not a Buddhist, but taking right action rooted in right thoughts and so on is an appropriate strategy. And not being attached to the outcome is also important here, because I've been teaching a certain way. I've been suggesting, and sometimes coming right out and saying, that I don't think having ed in it is a good idea. If I was attached to the outcome, then I would be devastated upon finding out that every single one of my students had children. That's not my burden. I look at what's going on today. I project into the future. I say having children is not going to make any significant problem any better. But I'm not going to crawl into your bedroom and prevent you as one of my students from having sex, right? So there are things that I don't have control over here. So we can promote, we can take actions, and I'm a huge fan, but that doesn't mean that we have to be attached to the outcome, because if we are, we're going to be miserable. We're going to be miserable. If I was attached to the outcome of none of my students having kids, I'd be devastated, because there are thousands of them now. As nearly as I can tell, they all had kids. I'd feel like an abject failure for my entire life if I were to judge myself based on how my students act.
And that's another word, judge yourself. That's something that took me over 40 years to stop doing. And I think that really, that is huge. Stop judging yourself. Just do what you want to do to make you happy in the interim. And Susan says, thank you, Guy. That is what we wanted to hear. Well, Susan, makes sense.
I talk about what I do know about, and I point out the mechanism by which the climate is changing. I point out the magnitude by which it has changed and is likely to change in the future. I point out that our species, like all others, depends upon habitat for our survival. I point out approximately when we came into being as a species and when we're likely to exit the planetary stage as a species. And I talk about those things because I know about those things, because I've studied them at great depth. That doesn't mean I know a lot about everything. So I talk about what
basically,
I know. I don't speak from a position of ignorance. I don't see any point in trying to jam this down people's throats. The information is readily available. If you want access to it, you'll go find it.
Oh, here we go again.
You don't want access to it, fine. But I can't I can lead the proverbial person to knowledge, but I can't make him think.